I start the webinar now.
Dear friends, dear ladies and gentlemen from everywhere, this is Sergei Lagodinsky speaking, a member of the European Parliament from the Green Party, and I am very happy to greet you to our expert roundtable and presentation of a study on a very important subject which covers both our very complex but very important relationship between the EU and Turkey on the one hand, but also about how we deal with the challenges and chances of the Green Deal in our bilateral relationships. Before we start, let me brief all of you about a couple of technical remarks. This briefing is being recorded and live streamed, and it will be made available later, also on YouTube, Twitter, and can be seen and documented by everyone, so just so that you know. You, dear viewers, have the possibility of asking questions after the presentation and the comments. For that, you would need to use the Q&A chat function. Please do so that we can engage with you. European Green Deal, it is of course a topic that has received a lot of attention in the European context for many years by now already. And as Green IFA spokesperson on Turkey, but also as chair of the EU-Turkey delegation of the European Parliament, I have been asking myself for a while, what does that mean for our bilateral relationship with our Turkish partners? This relationship is complex. We have, of course, many question marks and many fights and arguments. I don't have to explain to you that, and my colleagues from the Turkish side know exactly how outspoken we are on many issues, like rule of law, like democracy, participation of civil society, and also foreign policy. But we should not forget about the issues that we will have to face and have to solve together. And one of those issues is climate change, but also is economic chances and economic challenges that the green transformation poses to all of us. So I'm very happy to present to you today a study that we have commissioned to discuss the interface options, the options for our cooperation in that area. And I'm happy that the two authors of the study that we have commissioned are with us. They would present the results first. I am happy to welcome Sevil Açar from Bogazici University, and also Ahmet Atil Ashici from the Istanbul Technical University, who were so kind and were experts who have written the study. And then we would have two commentators who are also very welcome and very happy to see you. This is our good friend Asli Aydin Taşbaş, who is a senior policy fellow from the European Council on Foreign Relations, and we cooperate on many issues together. Thank you, Asli, for being here. You were one of the first who actually addressed this issue in one of the studies of European Council on Foreign Relations.
Thank you, Sergey.
From the strategic perspective. And Nursen Numanoglu, who is the Deputy Secretary General of TÜSİAD, which is the Turkish Industry and Business Association. I'm very happy to welcome you here. Your organization and you yourself are one of the best, most reliable partners in those difficult times, and someone who have also addressed these issues very early on. And I understand, of course, the business context of that, but also the political open-mindedness of your organization on this. So I'm very happy that you would also be able to comment on that. This is not all. I also wanted to welcome here Ambassador and a good friend, Mehmet Kemal Bozay, who was interested in this round and has joined this round. Ambassador, welcome. And I'm happy that you would also participate in the later discussion with us. Welcome, Ambassador. Your honor is
Thank you.
Thank you. So without further ado, we will have this very short briefing options, but they're always the best in the digital format. Let's start with the presentation and the authors of the study. You have the floor, and you have 15 minutes together for the presentation. Looking forward.
Okay. I will be starting first, and I hope you will be seeing my screen very soon.
We already do.
Okay, perfect. And is it flowing if I continue like this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So thanks again, Sergey, for actually establishing such a nice network between the two of us, Ahmet and me, and also you, because we think that this was a good opportunity to see how the fruits of our research can come and find a space to be implemented, maybe on the grounds of cooperation between the EU and Turkey, and on the very basic ground of the European Green Deal and the necessity of other Green Deals in different parts of the world. So this study is titled as Towards a Green Deal in Turkey, the Potentials of EU-Turkey Cooperation on the Green Transition, and it's co-authored with my colleague Ahmet Adıl Aşıcı, as you can see. So upon the announcement of the European Green Deal, we have very quickly observed that it will not only affect the EU, but all the trading partners via various channels. But we have identified two main channels, two major channels that could directly affect the Turkish economy and other trading partners of the EU, namely the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism and the Circular Economy Action Plan. So the CBAM would be, of course, very, very vital for the exporters from any state that has trade relations with the EU, especially in case they do not have any carbon pricing policies. So specifically, the idea is that the taxes, the CBAM would be taxing the carbon content of the exports made to the EU. And the Circular Economy Action Plan would require the product redesign to allow for longer lifespan, reuse, easily repairable goods, energy material efficient goods, so that the economy and the economic production taking place in, again, trading partners would be in a more circular form of production process. So it would also extend the producer responsibility because maybe so far we have been talking about recycling, but it could lead to other forms of the circular economy, including repair, reuse, refurbish, and etc. So we had identified these two channels within the EGD, but very recently we identified another channel coming to the agenda with the German Bundestag, or its announcement of the supply chain ethic law, where the German firms will be held responsible for the environmental and human rights violations in their supply chains beginning from 2023. Okay, so these three channels are quite vital, quite important for the Turkish economy, because EU is the most important trading partner of Turkey, as almost half of the Turkish exports are sold in the EU market. Our academic adventure started with this, now I can say that we are very proud of it, and with this very nicely put report in 2020, which was commissioned by TÜSİAD, the Turkish Industry and Business Association. So in this report, we had studied the risk of having an inactive climate policy for Turkey. Because what we mean by inactive is that we don't have an active carbon pricing method or tool settled in the Turkish economy yet, but we are now aware of the fact that there will be a CBAM cost of the Turkish exporters if the carbon embedded in the exported goods are to face different prices per ton of carbon dioxide emissions. And by then we had calculated these costs ranging between 1.1 to 1.8 billion euros that would be spilled over or allocated between different sectors of the economy. Of course, some sectors would be more prone to these higher costs because they are more trade-oriented with the EU and they are more carbon-intensive, but almost all sectors that are exporting to the EU would be affected from this kind of a CBAM cost. So, of course, there are also opportunities attached to being party to the Paris Agreement that we identified in the report, such as retaining the competitiveness of the sectors, energy efficiency gains, and also for the country as a whole, better access to global climate funds. And we try to model all this using an input-output and computable general equilibrium analysis. So that was the start for us. But in the meantime, following our report, the European Green Deal attracted wide attention of the civil society and other stakeholders within the country as well. So numerous informative webinars were organized. There were joint declarations from different think tanks in Turkey, such as Istanbul Policy Center, Economic Policy Research Foundation, and Economic Development Foundation, who in common expressed a strong call for urgent action towards a green transformation in Turkey. And following those debates and those, calls, the European Green Deal Action Plan of Turkey was announced in July 2021 with 81 actions and 32 targets under 9 main themes, ranging from carbon border adjustment, clean, affordable, secure energy supply, fight against climate change, green and circular economy, green finance, sustainable agriculture, and sustainable smart mobility, to the diplomacy, to informative and educational activities sphere of it. But of course, there were also the shortcomings. There were the shortcomings of the Turkish IGDAP. For instance, there wasn't any fossil fuel exit pledge or date or any specific deadline for exit from fossil fuels. There was the absence of actions related to just transition. Unfortunately, just transition is not even mentioned within the IGDAP. Most of the 81 actions remain vague, reflecting intentions rather than concrete targets. But still, it was a very nice follow-up step from the Turkish side. So, following the EGDAP, the announcement of the EGDAP, the year 2053 was announced as the carbon neutrality date, and also following the Glasgow summit, the Paris Agreement was ratified by the Turkish Parliament very quickly, finally, and now we are expecting that the revised Turkish NDC will be submitted very soon to the UNFCCC. In the meantime, the Turkish ministries, such as the Ministry of Trade, have already engaged in technical cooperation with their EU counterparts on CBAM and zero carbon steel, and seek to extend cooperation with the other committees. So in this current policy note, we started in the first step to match the EGDAP actions with the related European Green Deal policy areas. And in the second step, we identified the EU decentralized agencies that could foster cooperation between the EU and Turkey in realizing these actions. And the potential policy areas that we identified were actually very simply these 5 areas. The climate change topic, the GHG emissions, clean energy, and CBAM, sustainable industry and circular economy topic, sustainable agriculture, sustainable mobility, and finally, green finance and EU-Turkey cooperation and capacity building topic. And then we identified the cooperation platforms, which could include the EU decentralized agencies and industrial alliances. So to begin with, the first of these potential policy areas was about climate change, which was the heart of the EGD. And for Turkey as well, it's a very essential topic to be studied, because Turkey has been increasing its emissions very, tremendously, from around 220 million tons in 1990 to 506 million tons in 2019. So more than 100% increase in the meantime. And our existing nationally determined contribution envisages a 21% reduction from the business as usual emissions of 1,175 million tons in 2030. But we know, and it has been appreciated, that it has to be revised, because it's not a very ambitious target. In its current state, it can almost double the current emissions by 2030. Steps have been taken to set up a national emissions trading system that will likely be linked to the EU ETS. We have a monitoring system that has already been established, the MRV system. But of course, we are coming closer to establishing a carbon pricing strategy very soon. And in the meantime, the heavy reliance on fossil fuels in electricity generation and in other sectors of the economy still poses a significant economic burden to the Turkish industry and households. And we have seen the signs of it with the current crisis of the energy and natural gas in Turkey. The second topic was sustainable industry and circular economy. Why? Because it's another problematic area, as economic growth has not been decoupled from resource use, energy depletion, and environmental degradation yet. But there are, small instances where we can see the start of various collaborations within the country, such as, for instance, the Turkish business community initiated the materials marketplace project under the Turkish Circular Economy platform, where the waste producer firms and waste user firms get together in order to, increase the circularity in the economy. And we had already initiated the Zero Waste project in 2017. The third problematic area, but a potential policy area, could be sustainable agriculture. Turkish agriculture is exposed to the impacts of climate change very heavily due to the droughts, floods, water stresses that are experienced in the country. And at the same time, there has been a heavy reliance on imported fertilizers, pesticides, seeds, fuels from abroad. And there is a decline of arable land. There is a decline of small-scale farming, and especially organic farming, especially in the very recent years. So these are identified as main problems. And similar to the industry, the transport sector as a fourth policy area is also dominated by imported fossil fuels, which is used in the road transport. And also the taxation strategy towards the different vehicles in the Turkish economy has been, unfortunately, to the disadvantage of the e-vehicles. And finally, the area regarding the green finance opportunities and EU-Turkey cooperation that could enhance capacity building is also another blurred area, but has to be tackled. Turkey is party to the EU Environment Partnership Program for Accession and the EU Support for Climate Action, which includes a transition towards the low emissions and to a climate resilient economy. So it has started to benefit from different types of pre-accession assistance within the framework of IPA beneficiary programs. And it has benefited, or it has received some money in order to implement its projects in the area of climate resilience and climate action, but it has not benefited sufficiently from different financial resources that have been allocated to mitigate the effects of climate change yet. One reason for that is that it has been listed. It has been listed as a developed country within the within the framework of the climate negotiations in the UNFCCC, so that it would be not among the beneficiaries, but among the suppliers of finance towards the developing economies. But very recently, it withdrew its demand for being listed as a developing country at the very recent Glasgow meeting. So far, I have talked about the potential policy areas, and now my colleague Ahmet will be coming to our potentially identified interfaces that could help the cooperation between the EU and Turkey to be established. So the floor is yours, Ahmet.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have the floor. We don't have that much time, but
Sure.
yeah, it would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, all. Thanks for the invitation. Let me continue with the second part of the presentation. I hope you all see. Right. Okay, so in the second part, actually, so in the first part, we identified the policy areas and then the policy actions in the Turkish action plan. Now it's time to match these policy actions with the possible platforms that we can, enhance the cooperation between the EU and Turkey. So the first policy area is the clean energy, climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, and CBAM. So when we look at the Turkish EGDAP, we see that the Turkey is kind of trying to adapt to the new regime, actually, by adopting a national emission trading system. In that sense, is actually we argue that Turkey or the relevant Turkish ministries can cooperate with the decentralized agencies like European Environment Agency or European Institute of Innovation and Technology in kind of, pursuing this or realizing these actions. Okay, so I think the experience of the European decentralized agencies like European Environment Agencies or all these decentralized agencies, Turkey, in the history has some relationship with the European Environment Agency that we observed. I think they gathered a valuable experience that Turkey can benefit from. So the second policy area is a sustainable industry, circular economy. Again, we see that here Turkey is trying to adapt to the new regulations like sustainable product, eco-design, energy labeling directives of EU. It's a good thing. Again, on those policy areas, Turkey can cooperate with European Environment Agency, European Chemicals Strategy, especially on the zero pollution production systems. The third policy area is the sustainable agriculture. Again, we see that Turkey is trying to adapt to the farming practices of EU by limiting the pesticides use and antimicrobial reduction targets again. So in that sense, we argue that Turkey can cooperate with the European Food Safety Authority and the European Fisheries Control Agency. Coming to the sustainable mobility policy area, again, we see that the Turkish EGDAP contains some actions like green port certification or supporting green maritime and reducing maritime related pollutions or improving the transport infrastructure. Again, we identified two possible platforms, which are the European Maritime Safety Agency, European Railway Agency, that these policy actions can be realized. The last policy area is the green finance and capacity building. Actually, in the Turkish EGDAP, we identified 10 actions under the green finance theme, and they are mostly related to the kind of increasing the access to the global climate funds or general financing options. So here, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the European Investment Bank is a kind of can be good channels that Turkey can secure some finance on the way to green transformation. Again, as we say that, as Sevil Hoca said, actually just transition is lacking in Turkish EGDAP. I think it's a very important kind of topic. The Turkish EGDAP can be extended in the future. And if it is extended, then there is a possible platform that, like the European Agency for Safety and Health at Work and the European Foundation for the Improvement of Living and Working Conditions, so that these actions, can be realized. So, apart from the EU decentralized agencies, we also identified, other channels that green transformation can be kind of enhanced in Turkey through the industrial alliances. So at the moment, I think there are 6 industrial alliances in Turkey. Only 5 of them allow engagement from non-EU countries, which are the European, as you see, raw materials alliances. Among over 500 participants, 6 firms or institutions from Turkey. So we argue that the relevant Turkish ministries can encourage Turkish stakeholders like companies, research institutions to engage in these alliances. So that will also help for the green transformation of Turkey. The concluding remark, look, Turkish economy is in a big problem today. And we argue that a Turkish Green Deal can be a viable alternative to the current unsustainable economic development path of Turkey. So in that sense, like for so many years, the European Union actually has a very valuable experience in green transformation. And we argue that Turkey should benefit from these valuable experiences. The most important thing in the green transformation of Turkey is the stakeholder engagement. This should be done in a very, decision-making process should be participatory and it has to consult to all related stakeholders. This is what we see from the European Green Deal experience in the EU. Actually, it's a successful so far, and the success is coming from the participation and the effective governance of the process. So we thank you for your attention, and we are ready to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation and the very good and comprehensive study. Let's see what our invited experts will have to comment. Let's start with Asli Aydin Taşbaş. Asli, you are author of a previous study of your institution where you looked at the geopolitical dimensions of this. How do you see this all come together, and what are your expectations? Are you hopeful, or do you think this is not going to go anywhere?
Well, before I bore you all with my pessimism, let me start out by thanking the authors, Ahmet Bey and Sevil Hanım, because it's a very good report, and also Sergey yourself for kicking off this conversation. I think we need many of these events, and I hope this serves as the first beginning of a conversation with the parliament or with the green community that your party represents and Turkish stakeholders. Now, I think the report is important because it touches upon some of the core problem areas and highlights where there could be movement. We were all happy to see Turkey ratify the Paris Climate Accords earlier this year, the end of last year, and of course that it has committed itself to reduce to carbon emissions by 2053. But I was hoping for a faster legislative track afterwards, and it hasn't happened. And I think Sevil Hanım was right in using the expression vague reflections, because that is what we really have right now. And there has been an overhaul in bureaucracy and changes in new ministry and new organizations, and these are all very good and necessary. But we're still at the point of identifying where you need movement. That is the first point, first step, yes. But but that's far from getting to climate goals. I think climate conversation, climate change, climate action is very, very similar to human rights legislation, in the sense that you cannot just have political will. You need to have political will and legislative action to match. Turkey experienced this with human rights in let's say, the period between 2000 and 2010, when it advanced in terms of human rights reforms and significantly in parallel with the EU accession process. The experience there was, it's not good enough for politicians to say they want human rights. It's only after you bring legislative action into the parliament that you see an actual tangible improvement. Now, climate action is similar. It's fine to identify and fine to prepare the ground, but we do need a political will to push ahead, and we do need to see legislative action, which at the end of the day will have to be in Turkish parliament. That's one area. Secondly, let me quickly move to, I think the report lays out where we need to see action. Immediately coal, decommissioning, weaning out of the coal. There is still no strategic direction in that sense. Obviously, renewables and whatnot. And I think that we have to understand that Turkey does have a very capable business community, well organized. It has a very sophisticated NGO community when it comes to climate action, but there isn't the synergy we need right now. Now, there are also problems on the European side when it comes to Turkey. You mentioned the report that we've done with ECFR on Turkey and green transformation and how Turkey and Europe could work together. There, Susie Dennison and myself, we argued that this was a geopolitical issue for Europe. In order for Europe to actually achieve its strategic autonomy in the climate course in terms of climate green transformation, and to show leadership on this issue, it is absolutely necessary that there be a functional, structured, formal process with Turkey. We're not there at the moment. Yes, there is a high-level conversation between Turkey and Europe that has kicked off recently, and obviously, and obviously that's good. But what we need is exactly the opposite of high level. We need the bureaucracies on both sides matching up, working together for legislative action, for CBAM and other areas that are laid out in this area. So that is obviously what Europe needs for climate leadership in its geography. But my sense, Sergey, is that this is not at this point a priority. From everything I need coming out of Brussels, Western Balkans and climate action in Western Balkans and the wider Mediterranean region seems to be a priority at the moment. And while obviously no one is objecting to that, Western Balkans is an important area for Europe's security, economy, strategic autonomy. The relationship with Turkey is so unique, so precious, so fundamental to both economic and strategic interests of Europe and Turkey, that this conversation at the working level in terms of legislative level has to start. And here's now further pessimism. I do see 2023 as a lost year for many reasons. On a geopolitical level, Ukraine crisis is obviously soaking up much of the energy in the room. It's a very important and fundamental issue, and we all understand that. But there is little bandwidth at this point to force to move ahead with climate conversation in Turkey. On the Turkish side, it's an election year, and elections are not good for climate action in Turkey. It may be different in different countries, but I cannot see any significant legislative agenda when it comes to, coal, pivoting away from coal, or even stringent environmental regulations that obviously need to be introduced to pivot away from for fossil exit, to pivot away from fossils. And another reason that 2023 is not a hopeful year is obviously the energy crisis that we're seeing around, already starting to make itself felt in Turkey, but by all accounts, with tensions going on with Russia, it can get even worse. And I think it's difficult to get any government in Turkey, particularly this government, to commit to climate action at a year when you have elections and energy shortages. But this is no reason to see 2023 as a waste year, because the truth is, some of the targets that are mentioned, both on the European side and on the Turkish side, are not that far off. You do need to prepare a legislative agenda, to prepare it, make it ready to go with it early in 2020, at some point in late 2023, in order to meet later goals. And maybe one other thing that I need to mention, I think I've gone over my time, but I think that there is a stalling phase in Turkish-EU relations. This is very clear. It's coming from both sides, for Turkey, for all types of reasons that have to do with self-image, to sort of priorities, to other things. But the one issue we've always talked about is customs union, upgrading it, removing trade irritants. Now, Susie and I have always been arguing to somehow create, to somehow link that, to create a synergy with that process and climate change, European green conversation. And most bureaucrats are telling me that is, on the European side or Turkish side, how difficult that is, but it's completely achievable and would save us a whole number of steps in moving forward if we were to somehow find ways of expediting this process as we think further in terms of Turkey's relations with the European Union. Thank you, Sergey.
Thanks so much, Asli, as always, giving us a broader picture and also giving some very specific recommendations. Thank you for this. And our second and last commentator is Dr. Nursen Numanoglu. I already introduced you. You come from that business community that Asli mentioned. What is your perspective? What can be done? Maybe a low threshold opportunities for you. What would you recommend to us as Europeans? We also have some homework to do, but also to our Turkish partners. Welcome here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lagodinsky, for the invitation. Taking part in the meetings related with the focus on EU-Turkey relations is always a high priority for us, since we are one of the main advocates on this subject. Let me first congratulate Professor Acar and Professor Aşıcı for this fully fledged report, which gives us a good opportunity to express our views in a wider range. As a response to your first question, first part of your question, I will start with a kind of brief explanation how we see some roadmap for Turkey-EU relations could be. There are 4 points, very, very briefly. Reactivating a constructive and future-oriented integration partnership, including migration and trade issues while avoiding transactional models of cooperation. The other is preserving the legal basis of relations, thus accession partnership, prioritizing the launch of negotiations on the customs union update in line with the sustainable development agenda, including green and digital transformation, and addressing European Green Deal as a part of customs union modernization. What we believe is European Green Deal will be main pillar and main driver of this process. And the sustainable development ambition, which is common goal of the business, will pave the way to establish a sound ground for the green transition in Turkey and in the EU supply chain. The report, by its nature, focuses on potential cooperation areas which could contribute to the convergence of EU and Turkey in technical aspects. In this perspective, the EU agencies, bodies referred in the report should contribute to the strengthening of dialogue among parties and capacity development in relevant stakeholders. But I would underline some newly established dialogue mechanisms between EU and Turkey. Namely, there are dialogue mechanisms on CBAM, carbon pricing, and climate adaptation. Those are critically important to pave the way for comprehensive alignment of Turkey with the European Green Deal. And as far as I understand, it is still possible to have some more additional working groups. And there are plenty of areas that we can cooperate. And circular economy, green technologies, research and innovation, sustainable finance are the main issues in that respect that we can communicate and we can deepen our relation. However, the main anchor in the process, which should be kept, will be effective enforcement and implementation of the existing integration mechanisms. This approach will increase the ownership of the society. And as a matter of fact, we have the most effective tool for this, which is the customs union modernization. As Aslan mentioned, I'm quite optimistic, and I really believe there is a potential there. It goes far beyond the market access. It ensures regulatory alignment as well, and so it's a very effective tool. Let me continue with what we are doing and what is the situation in Turkey and how business is seeking for. From the perspective of TÜSİAD, we strongly believe we must act urgently to address the climate change issue. We define it as a crisis, and the transition towards a climate resilience economy in Turkey should be achieved. In 2017, TÜSİAD board approved the first and unique climate-based position paper released by a business organization in Turkey. We adopted the Paris Agreement as a strategic priority in this position paper. And last year, we stressed the ratification of Paris Agreement prior to COP26. And we asked for the adoption of a holistic, consistent roadmap, which will be grounded in science, which ensures policy consistency and underlines carbon neutral target by 2050. We also stressed the revision of NDC. Of course, we are gratifying the ratification of the agreement by the government. This determination, this commitment is quite important. There are some ongoing activities under the umbrella of Climate Council established very recently. And the studies, which will be outcome of this council meetings, are expected to draw a policy framework for the climate law, ETS system to be established in Turkey, which will be a case for carbon pricing, and the NDC revision with the aim of its submission in 2022. Those are the important steps already taken. On the other side, as the report underlines and gave information about the content, Ministry of Trade conducted a study for the adoption of Turkey's Green Deal Action Plan. These action plan, all the studies are very important for the predictability of the extent of the pathway to be followed. However, the Turkish business calls for the complementarity and coherence of all these studies and their consistent implementation. The progress to be achieved in this process and the implementation level will give impetus to the green transition investments and ambitious actions in combating and adapting to climate change. At this point, I have to say that economic and political reforms should also be strengthened for the predictability of the investment environment. To comply with the European Green Deal, and as a main component of it, to comply with the CBAM ecosystem will be a challenging area. We know that, but as to SIAD, we defined all this process as an opportunity in the sense of green transformation. It will be difficult, but we should go this way. In order not to lose our competitiveness in the EU market and global supply chain, it is important to timely complete legislative and administrative structure in Turkey, which is compatible with the EU, with the European Green Deal. And the other issue is carbon pricing and the establishment of ETS system. It will be a very remarkable process in this stage. And the other issue that I would like to mention, yes, there is a need for the establishment of relevant infrastructure and the enforcement of relevant legislation. But on the other side, for the CBAM impact, there are some issues that needs cooperation, and one is the establishment of effective consultation and dialogue mechanisms with the EU through the CBAM committees, and the other is allocation of CBAM revenues, or at least equivalent revenue as highlighted in the reporter Kaim's CBAM draft report. Those issues will be key enablers for the climate action in accession countries and in the key economic partners. When it comes to, I want to say a couple of things, a couple of words for the content of, for the fields included in the report. When it comes,
we have to wrap up because.
Okay, what can I say? Then I will skip some technical aspects, but I would like to end with sustainable finance issue. It's really important because all the green transformation process needs investments, green investments, and there is a need for concession funds, there is a need for sustainable finance, and in that respect, what we have to do, there is a new developments in the EU side for EU taxonomy, and this will be the main framework for the eligibility of investments, how we can understand this is sustainable or not. So what we are expecting in Turkey also, to take proactive measures in order to adopt EU taxonomy in Turkey as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hopefully, this will be a taxonomy which will be clear also from the green perspective. You know that we have our criticism on nuclear and gas,
yes,
branded as sustainable, but this is maybe for another webinar. Let's open to all the guests who would like to engage. Maybe we'll, if you have time, we will a little bit exceed the time limit. But I have 3 people who would like to speak. But first of all, of course, our guest of honor, Ambassador Mehmet Kemal Bozay. You are welcome for your intervention. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, dear Sergey. It is great to be here. First of all, thanks for arranging this kind of an activity. This was very important for all of us. It's very timely, and then report is a very good one, which is covering so many issues. I'll briefly make 2-3 points. First of all, the Turkish Action Plan is a living document, and it was circulated, prepared before we ratified the Paris Agreement. So there will be some changes, there will be some arrangements according to that. And data is changing so fast, you know, the report and then all the TÜSİAD preparations. And this report, I believe, was prepared on the basis that the carbon pricing for ton was 30 to 50 euros. It is already 98 euros. And then what I will ask kindly from you to have this kind of gatherings more often and on regular basis, because we need to be on the same page, and also we should find ways how we can cooperate. And this report, it was a very important and very comprehensive report. It covers the 2019 and 2020 Climate Council meetings. On 21st of February, we will have another council meeting with all stakeholders. This is very important, and I believe that we should follow it. And also, one of the important dimensions of this main issue is that it is a matrix. You cannot take only climate, and you cannot also omit other issues. And when I say other issues, the matrix consists of, as in the report, very well put forward. It is, sustainable agriculture, sustainable mobility. And when you have this sustainable mobility and other things, you need to have more dialogue. And then we are working on to have high-level dialogues on agriculture, transportation, energy, research and development, and also Dr. Numanoğlu mentioned about importance of RD. And this is our concentration. As Aslı also underlined very correctly, it is not enough to have only high-level dialogues. We need to have bureaucratic work, and we have already started that. And there are working groups on CBAM, and already we shared our comments, and we are having a climate group, and also these groups are increasing. But it is like tango. It needs two to cooperate, and we also have expectations from the EU. One of the things what is important is sustainable funding, and IPA and IPAR for agriculture and IPA for transportation. They are main sources. And also EIB and EBRD contributions to Turkey's climate policies will be very highly appreciated. And we are working on also taxonomy. Taxonomy is very important. As you mentioned just now, already there are big discussions inside EU on this nuclear energy and other issues. And make a correction maybe, Turkish electricity production is not heavily dominated by fossils. 45% of our electricity production is from renewables, and we are increasing this number each year. And this year we had a very heavy snow, and then this year there will be a record production in that sense. And I would like to thank you again. My expectation from you as a good friend of Turkish people, and also the Turkey as being the co-chair of the Turkey-EU parliamentary group, my expectation from you as a green parliamentarian to introduce and to create more awareness in Turkey about some EU projects, which you are very familiar with, Bauhaus, because energy efficiency is very important. And the Bauhaus project, I don't want to go into details of it, is a very important project which Turkish people should be also have some idea about them, and to have awareness. Turkish construction sector should arrange also some of its standards according to Bauhaus standards. Thanks for giving me this chance, and we will have more. I hope my expectation from you, if it's possible, to have reports, updated reports, and to have some other things. For example, eco design regulations. We have the legislative framework, and we can work on all these things. Thank you very much for giving me this chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We will have plenty of time to discuss this in detail. Thanks for laying this out. Let's go to the people who wanted to speak. We have Ellen Pedersen, who is a colleague from the Parliament. Ellen, please, you have the floor. You are muted. If you want to speak, you have to unmute yourself. And then there was also a colleague from the Heinrich Böll Foundation, but I don't see her on the list anymore for now. But if she is, please raise your hand. Ellen Peterson, let me see if we can. You have to unmute yourself. I'm trying to unmute you here, but for that you have to unmute yourself. Sorry, it was a mistake. I lowered my hand. It says Ellen Peterson. But that's even better, because that means that we are here in our discussion phase and we still have some time. I wanted to ask the authors, especially against the background of what our guest from the European Council on Foreign Relations, from Asli, what she said, that this is a lot of it are good plans and good intentions, and the challenge is going to be how do we fill it with life and with clear practical consequences. What would you recommend to us as European parliamentarians? What can we do now in order to do the first active steps? I know that the Commission, by the way, is considering and working on providing Turkey, or including Turkey into the what they did with the Balkans, into the plan where the green investment would be possible. What other steps do you think, kind of the low threshold steps, could you envision for us as a priority?
Well, I think first, I also agree with the other commentators that, you know, these are the good steps in the good direction. The ratification of the Paris Agreement and this announcement of the carbon neutrality date of 2053, but yet the action plan is okay. And we are also aware of the fact that as the Consul Mehmet Bey, that this is a living document and it has to be updated. And we know that how the Turkish ministries are, you know, like ambitious. We saw their ambition. But the problem in Turkey is that, you know, like there is a de facto dual structure, dual governance structure, right? So we have the ministry level. They seem to be very ambitious. They seem to be very capable of kind of, you know, following or like drafting the legislations. But then we have the top governance structure so far. And these two structures do not necessarily match all the time, you know, coincide all the time. So that is one problem of Turkey, actually, the governance structure. This is something that we need to kind of solve by ourselves. Again, it's like next year, this year is an election year, and I'm also like sharing the pessimism of Aslı Hanım that, but it can be seen as a window of opportunity as well. Look, there is a young, you know, majority of the Turkish population is still young, and they are going to vote the very first time in the coming year. And we know their kind of their attention to the climate issues, okay? So their attention to the sustainable development. So government may see it as a kind of window of opportunity in reaching out these young parts of the society as well by kind of increasing the pace of this green transformation, increasing the pace of green legislation in Turkey. So this is
appeal to the voters. Yes, of course. And my last question, maybe addressed to Nurzen Numanoğlu. The current economic situation, the business environment is of course very precarious now in Turkey. How do you think would this affect those prospects? Would this be a chance to say, you know, now we have to rebuild the economy, or do you think there is enough political will to that, or do you think this will be more kind of a distraction, where, as in many also countries in Europe, some politicians say, you know, stop talking about Green Deal. There is a green inflation. There is what they say. Or there is a distraction. We need to get the economy on track, back on track, and we don't need anything green for that, or not at least to the extent that the Green Deal envisions. What do you think are the prospects there from the Turkish perspective?
Yes, you're right. We are passing through the very difficult days. It's not easy to predict what will going to happen in the future, and the green transition needs long-term decisions and needs investments, and those are the big investments actually, and they should be real calculations at the background to justify it. So it's difficult, but nobody in Turkey, I can say that, including the entire supply chain, including SMEs, they are aware of the need for the green issue. The level of awareness is different than each other, and but the ability, of course, to make transformation, it changes from the scale. It depends on the scales of the companies, but I can say that the awareness is quite high, and they are planning. They are planning to take actions for green transformation. But what we are saying, what the business side is saying, there should be a clear and strong and tangible policy framework, and there should be policy implementation at the governmental level, and there should be support mechanisms to encourage business side and the civil society and the academy to direct their studies on the way to green transformation. I can say that there is a hope in green transformation. It is difficult, but nobody in Turkey is saying that European Green Deal or green transition is not something not taken in the agenda. It's at the top of the agenda. That is what I can say. At least in my ecosystem, this is the view that I have.
Well, thanks. And the final question coming from a listener who is also an active political, but also a political thinker, let's say it, both in Germany and in Turkey. Jan Cherkol, who is asking, he's pointing actually to one of the main questions of our times regarding this topic. How would you recommend that this topic should be communicated, but also maybe, politically approached, so that it is not overshadowed by the many conflict topics that we have in our bilateral relationship? Because this is, of course, the obvious elephant in the room. And Ambassador would probably agree that it's very rare that we get together to discuss a topic which is more about cooperation rather than, either scolding at each other or criticizing each other, because we have a lot of issues on democracy, starting with democracy, on geopolitics, etc. So how would you recommend, maybe a question to Asli and Sevil on that, how would you recommend to approach this topic so that we don't lose credibility on other issues, but also have a potential for some, I wouldn't say positive agenda, I hate this word, but for some, cooperation platform on the issues where we have to cooperate?
Well, I think first principle is not to mix with other aspects of the Turkish-EU relationship. This is not an accession process. This does not replace the accession process. This is not something that is about democracy and human rights. It is a core part of an economic engagement, economic synergy that is already there. It's a strategic decision, much like energy decisions. but I would not like people to think that this becomes the accession process, or conversely, this helps the accession process, or this suddenly improves Turkey's democracy because there's a green conversation. I think, so that would be my first instinct, is actually decoupling it from other aspects of the Turkish-European conversation. Second thing is much for a communication strategy inside Turkey. It's very important that stakeholders, including business industry leaders and the government, of course, communicate to the public that this is not something Turkey is doing because Europe is asking it to do. It's not something we're doing it because of financial gains, because there will be some green financing at the end. This is absolutely necessary, not for economic reasons or not to improve Turkey's global image, but it's necessary not for Turkey not to miss out on the 21st century and on the competitiveness of its industries. I mean, very much one of the things I use when I talk to particularly those that come from a conservative background or from the conservative parties, highlighting that Ottomans missed out on the Industrial Revolution. That this a century later is the next big thing coming. You don't want the Republic of Turkey to miss out on the Green Revolution and the innovative technologies that are going to come with it. So that would be one talking point that I would use in Turkey, and I hope Turkish businesses and the government does communicate to the public that we're not doing this for Europe. We're doing this because we have an ambitious agenda for 21st century.
And before we turn to Sevil, with your kind of final wrapping up on this issue, let me give a floor to Ambassador on this issue. Maybe this would
Thank you, dear Sergey. The important thing, as Aslı also mentioned, this is we are in the same ship. We are all on the same boat. And whatever the political problems, it doesn't change the climate crisis. And also, anything happening in Mediterranean, we might have political issues, is affecting all the neighborhood. Western Balkans, we are mentioning. Western Balkans is next door to Turkey, and anything happening in Turkey will have an effect on Western Balkans. Can you imagine if Netherlands would have some climate arrangements and Belgium wouldn't have? It is the same story. Turkey, Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, we need to be on the same page, especially in Black Sea, in Mediterranean. So this is, we should have a holistic approach. We should be on the same page. Another issue I would like to emphasize, customs union is also an important component of this, because if we don't have the CBAM arrangements altogether, there will be one thing, there will be only one side having some tax arrangements, but the other side wouldn't have. We should also work on that. Maybe next time in our report, we can work with that. And we have some political issues, we have some conflicts, but when I have with the countries that we have some political issues, when we sit together, we discuss very correctly, very efficiently on climate issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for this important clarification. Sevil Açar, you have the final word in our discussion.
I will just add to what Aslı Hanım and Mehmet Kemal Bey have said. Actually, I agree that this is something totally different from the ongoing problems between the EU and Turkey. That's okay, but on the other side, I think it has still a very important economic side, which has to be addressed and which has to be kept in mind. Why do I say this? Although we have been, we are for a climate agenda that will be beneficial for the whole globe, right? Not because it's a common problem of the all human beings, but the countries have their own peculiarities. The economies have their own problems, and for the specific case of EU-Turkey relations, I think Turkey's economic problems cannot be underestimated. So maybe part of the problem in the communication of such, issues in the communication with the EU arises from the fact that this is not well noticed. I mean, we have tried to touch upon these issues regarding financing, regarding funding opportunities that could be found for Turkey. But on the other side, Turkey has been suffering from very, very high inflation rates very recently. And there are other structural economic problems that are ongoing. So when these are on the top agenda, I think the common ground for real, circular economy or for real climate transformation are already forgotten. Okay, so these have to be tackled, or these have to be understood maybe together with each other, such that under these economic circumstances, what could the two regions, the EU and Turkey, could cooperate on, and how it could be achieved? I don't know the channels. I'm not a political scientist, or I'm not a communications person, but I think these are really important and real issues. Okay.
Thank you so much. This was a great final word for our discussion. We could discuss forever, but we are already over our time. Let's try to meet again in this round, or in a slightly different round, and discuss those issues, because I think that what Sevil Acar, but also what Ambassador said, is absolutely right. We have to address this issue as a holistic issue, which includes economy, and from my perspective also, at least from the German green perspective or the European green perspective, green transformation is also about empowering. There is an empowerment component in this, which empowers civil society, empowers small and mid enterprises, and kind of also drives the power away from the centralistic understanding of state very often, which is also a democracy component and a societal component. So this all plays together. We will address other issues, and we do address them constantly, but this, of course, is an important Green Deal transformation topic, and we will continue addressing them. Thanks for the report. The report can be downloaded. There is a link in the chat, and anyone who wants to see it or get it can download it for themselves. Thank you. All the best. Stay healthy. And I keep our fingers crossed for all the transformations that we are approaching.